Hey guys, Ray from Lovey RV and Boat. So today I'm going to take the wheels off, clean them up, pull the brake drums off, and replace the grease, clean out all the old grease, and repack the wheel bearings, regrease the spindles and everything, and also clean and adjust the brakes, inspect them, that sort of thing. So I've done this in the past. I'll link back to those more comprehensive videos. This one I'm just going to do kind of as a maintenance thing. I usually just pull one wheel off at a time. If I'm pulling both wheels off at a time to do, say, some major suspension work or something, I'll put to jack stands, and I'll put jack stands on the main I-beam frame and jack the whole trailer up. But when I'm just doing one wheel, what I do is, your mileage may vary, but what I do is I take a 20-ton bottle jack and I just jack right under the U-clamps right at the end of the axle, and I've never had any problems doing that. I've actually watched tire shops do that as well. So mainly you'll get RV manufacturers will always say jack on the I-beams, the trailer frame, but I think they're just covering their butt in case you bend your axles or something. Anyway, that's the way I've always done it, and I've never had any issues. So I'm going to use some grease called it's a red and tacky grease, Lucas, as far as for the wheel bearings. But I've recently bought this stuff called Atom Lube, ultra heavy duty red grease. So I'm going to put that in my grease gun. At the same time, I'm going to grease the zerks to grease the bushings, through the zerks on the bushings of the trailer suspension. I have bronze bushings in there with zerks also for my equalizer. So I'll take the opportunity while I have stuff off to re-grease those. I usually also have a jack stand that I just kind of put under as a last, like a safety thing in case something goes wrong. But usually there's no problem because I'm taking one wheel off. The other wheel will still be on the ground supporting the trailer, so not much chance of anything going wrong there. And I usually have some WD-40 and some brake cleaner. Brake cleaner, clean all, obviously, the brake hardware and stuff. And then when I'm cleaning out the old bearings, I usually start with some WD-40 in there, try to get the grease to go through, and then finish the job with brake cleaner so I can get all the old grease out of the bearings. Also have some brake and caliper grease. Grease the adjuster, star adjusters in there, and a few other bits and pieces inside I have drum brakes that have shoes. Tools. This is a really handy tool. It's actually a weighted hammer, so it's plastic, but you can see there's sand in there. It comes in handy for removing the end of the hub caps. They're usually stuck on there pretty good, but a couple whacks with this and it's off. And also for putting in the new seals. So when I pull off the hubs and redo the bearings, I'll have to pull out the old seals, and that damages them. So I have a set of new Timken seals to go in there. I actually don't have my seal puller with me. Must have left it in the storage shed. So I'm just going to use this because I'm going to wreck the seal anyway. So I can just use this to get that seal out because it's usually in there pretty tight. And then I've got a ratchet wrench there, impact driver, something for my knees, knee pads, and then I use a torque wrench to do up the lug nuts on the trailer. And also I have a few bits and pieces, flashlight and a screwdriver for adjusting the star screw in there. Usually once I pull the wheel off and I want to get the hub off, the brake will be adjusted so that it kind of stops it from easily being pulled off. So I go in there and loosen the star adjuster in there so I can get the hub off, and then I put it back, I'll adjust the brakes. And then I've got a pair of pliers because I forgot my socket. Another thing I forgot is I have a big socket that fits on the nut that holds the hub on. And usually when you put it back on with the new greased seals or new bearings, everything, you want to tighten it to, I think it's 50 pounds is what Dexter calls for, just to seat the bearings. I don't have that, so I'll just use this and kind of guesstimate it with my hands to tighten it right up there, and then you want to loosen it back off, maybe a quarter or half turn, and there's a little clip that goes on. This only can really go on at a certain point, so I find I just back it off till that clip can go back on, and we're usually good to go. Anyway, I've taken some footage of the procedure, so I'll just show you that I did accomplish yesterday. And like I say, I'll link back to my full detailed videos on this job that I've done. It's probably about 4 or 5 years ago, where I replaced the races in the hubs, and I also replaced the brakes, complete brakes replacement, and the bearings and seals. Kind of got rid of all the OEM junky stuff that they used and went with pretty good quality Timken made in the USA stuff. So let's get at her. Okay, so got everything cleaned up. Just give you kind of a look at it. Brake pads are starting to get worn down. I think next time will be time to change the brakes. Magnetic piece seems fine. Spindle shows a bit of wear, but not really all that bad considering the mileage on the trailer. And the drum looks okay. Looks about the same as before. There's a little bit of ridging here and there, but they're electric brakes. They seem to do the job anyway. Hasn't lost much mass to it. And I'm really happy with the bearings. They're in really good shape. They're the Timken bearings and don't see any signs of pitting or any problems with them. So I just thoroughly cleaned them out and get them ready to apply new grease. Cleaned everything with brake cleaner, letting everything dry. This part, I'm just adding grease to the bushings on my suspension. At some point, I changed them and put bushings that were able to be greasable, so that's been nice. The suspension from squeaking like it used to with the plastic bushings. And here I'm just showing you these hubs do this axle does have the easy lube system, so you can push grease through. I'm just pushing all the old grease out and getting it full with the fresh, clean grease. Usually, maybe once a year I'll go just pump a few pumps into there. Here I am just adding some grease to the cleaned up bearings. I forgot my little tool that does this, so I'm gonna have to go back to the old hand method. It's trying to push it in, get it as much full of grease as I can. Okay, so ready to reassemble. First I'll just put a light coating of grease on the spindle. And we'll insert the rear bearing into the hub. Then in goes the seal. Kind of get it started there. Just use a piece of wood with the mallet just to seat it evenly in there. Get it all nice and flush. And carefully put it back on the spindle. And we'll put the outer bearing. They're cone shaped, so they only go one way. But the inside and outside are slightly different diameters, so you know pretty soon if you put the wrong one in. And we put the washer back on and the nut. You're supposed to spin the wheel as you're tightening that nut. And if I had the big socket, I could spin it while I used my torque wrench to tighten it up to 50 pounds. So this I'm just going to guesstimate with these this wrench. Basically, you're just tightening it up enough to seat those bearings. And just back it off a bit. And there's a little clip on mine. Some have cotter pins. Mine has a clip, kind of a D-shaped clip. So it can only really go in one way. So it's pretty easy to figure out the exact place that they want it. I find you tighten it up and then just back it off a little bit and that thing fits on. You don't have too much play. So we're looking good. Final step is to just go underneath and I tighten up that star adjuster. I'll first put the cap on, but I tighten up the star adjuster just so it drags when the tire is on, so that the brake pads are just barely touching and you get a little bit of drag when you spin the wheel with the tire on. It's sort of what they say in the manual to do. It's been pretty successful for me. Helps to have a flashlight to try to figure out where that is. There is a little tool you can get. It's kind of looks like a bent screwdriver. Makes it a little easier, but I figured out how to do it, even though I couldn't find my little tool. It's probably with the other tools in the storage shed. Anyway, that's about it. Kind of a dirty, nasty job, so I'm glad it's done. I usually do that every 2 years. I find when we go down south and come back, every year the trailer gets about 5,000 miles. So in between at the 1 year, I'll pump a bit of grease into the easy lubes very carefully. You don't want to force too much in there and blow out the back seal and wet your brakes. So just 2 or 3, maybe 4 little pumps of fresh grease, and there's enough. And then every second year, I kind of do this procedure and take everything apart and repack the bearings and good to go. I've really never had a bearing problem 14 years so far, so looking good. Till next time, Ray from Love Your RV. Cheers, guys.